I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Energy and Climate Finance and Policy Division. We have a quorum. Would Representative Garofalo, would you care to move the minutes?
Happy to move the minutes, Mr. Chairman.
We have minutes from the 19th and the 21st. Representative Garofalo moves those minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are adopted. This morning we'll be walking through the DE language for House File 1833, our Policy and Renewable Development Account Finance Bill. The language is in the packets and posted as a DE1 is in a bill draft format. A DE format has been posted as DE2 with nearly identical language. Today we're not planning to take formal action, just discussing the language and taking public testimony. On Thursday, we'll adopt the DE format and mark up that version. Just about everything in this bill should be familiar to folks in this committee. We've heard these bills through the process of the committee this year. Are there any discussions from members about what's coming up or the process before us? Representative Baker.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Just looking at kind of the roadmap for the week, thank you for that brief overview. I want to find out a couple things about when will we want to be able to ask questions from members? Will that wait till after testimony? In between, I want to know, we still are waiting to see the process of getting back on the table the amendments that were presented with 1956. There's a lot of amendments still hanging out there that we never got a chance to bring to the table. I kind of want to find out the process of that and just, again, what is the roadmap of this? When do we start diving into the bill? To your wishes.
Thank you, Representative Baker. Today we'll be taking questions on the bill. We'll have a walkthrough of the bill from our House research, and then we'll have questions, opportunities for members to ask questions before we move to general testimony from the public. On Thursday, we'll be going through amendments.
Okay. And a follow-up, Mr. Chair, would that be, again, back to 1956, I see we've got a lot of very good testifiers coming to testify today and tonight. I don't see the PUC on here. And some of us had more questions for somebody from the PUC. Have they been invited, or are they planning on attending some of this testimony?
I don't think we've heard from the PUC. It's an open invitation for the public to testify, and they're certainly welcome if they want to come.
Okay, we'll try to do that. Thank you.
And with that,
I'm sorry, one more question. And again, just, when would be the deadlines this week for amendments?
it's 3 p.m. on Wednesday.
3 p.m. Wednesday. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. Any other questions about the process from here? Seeing no further questions, Representative Wagenius, please present House File 1833.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move House File 1833 to be referred to the Committee on Ways and Means.
Chair Wagenius moves House File 1833 to be referred to Ways and Means. Representative Wagenius.
So Minnesota youth see the reality of climate change and know that it threatens their future. They've come from all over the state to tell us they're scared, even terrified. They want us to leave them the same kind of promising future that our parents and our grandparents left to us. That's a tall order, and they know it. They're well aware of the 2018 report of the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Their researchers say that the world only has the next dozen years to sharply reduce carbon dioxide emissions to head off the most catastrophic impacts of climate change. Minnesota youth know that adults and our institutions need to make major changes within the next 12 years. The bill before you is a down payment on our effort to give young Minnesotans the kind of future they want and we want for them. I hear folks ask, is it really worth it to make the effort to deal with climate change? After all, we're just a small part of a problem and not a big part at all. I'm glad this question comes from a very small minority. Minnesotans are can-do people. Minnesotans know that leadership matters. And especially now that when we hear from scientists like Dr. Mark Seeley. He started our first hearing by saying that Minnesota has experienced the most profound changes in the country due to climate change. He said the pace of change is unprecedented and well documented by science. And he said he could not overstate the problem. When Minnesotans set renewable energy standards in 2007, our efforts led the nation. Others followed. Leadership matters. When Governor Walz announced his 100% carbon-free standard, the announcement was reported in the newspapers across the country, from the West in the San Francisco Chronicle, from the South in the Austin Daily Herald, and from the Southeast by the Miami Herald, and by the Associated Press and Bloomberg and more. Our leadership matters. In our hearings, there has been a general acknowledgement that we need to reduce carbon. That's a good place to start. This bill starts with Governor Walz's 100% carbon-free standard by 2050. But it doesn't just set a goal. It includes the first round of very practical changes that will put us on the path to a carbon-free future. These are Minnesota can-do changes, changes that Minnesotans would expect of us. Solar on schools and in state parks. Renewable energy for our higher ed campuses. Electric buses. Public electric vehicle charging stations in places where one would expect them to be. Access to solar for homes and businesses alike. What has been most impressive about our hearings are the Minnesotans who've come forward with the "I want to help" solutions. Like the architects who know that they can design more energy efficient buildings so you will find the stretch building code in this bill. Like the builders who want a PACE program that works for them. Those provisions are in this bill. And with Governor Walz's proposals that are in the bill, our electric utilities, co-ops, and munis have multiple opportunities to work with Minnesotans on efficiency and on moving from fossil fuels to electric energy. All our electricity providers have a huge role in making sure that young Minnesotans have the kind of future all Minnesotans want for them. This bill provides a roadmap for the changes that Minnesotans of all generations are demanding, changes that ensure the future we want for all Minnesotans, including the youngest. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would hope that our council would go over the bill.
Mr. Eliff, if you could walk us through the bill, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Section 1 of the bill is from Representative Long's House File 1683. The rest of that bill is on pages 3 to 5, skipping over page 2 for the moment. And what that bill does is set up a process by which customer energy data that's maintained by utilities can be accessed by 3 different entities. First, the customer themselves. Second, the customer can authorize that a third party receive that data. And finally, it provides a process whereby members of the public can access aggregated energy use data from a utility. Skipping back to page 2, in section 2 of the bill is Representative Long's House File 1022, which modifies Xcel's Solar Rewards Program. It extends the program an additional year and gives some additional money in the remaining years of the program on line 214. Moving to page 6. Section 4 actually makes no changes in current law, so that shouldn't even be here. Section 5 at the bottom of the page allows public utilities to petition the Public Utilities Commission to recover costs associated with energy storage pilot projects. At the top of page 8, Section 6 allows the commission to, or provides that the commission can allow public utility to recover from ratepayers expenses incurred to employ local workers to construct and maintain generation facilities. Section 7 is from Representative Long's House File 2625, modifying the community solar garden statute. One of the changes is at the top of page 9, which currently subscribers are required to be in the same county or a contiguous county to where the energy generating facility is. The language at the top of page 9 would say that's not necessary if the solar garden has a minimum setback of 100 feet from the nearest residential property, and the owner or operator of the garden certifies that at least 10% of the electric generating capacity of that garden will be reserved for residential members. Another change made is on page 10, in the middle of the page, subdivision 4, which establishes the Department of Commerce as the agency that will administer the solar community garden program. Up till now, it's been administered through Excel itself. This bill also creates 2 new types of community solar gardens. One is at page 11 in subdivision 6, a community access project, which is defined as a community solar garden in which at least 50% of the generating capacity is subscribed by residential customers. At the very bottom of the page on the last line, it provides that those community access projects, in those community access projects, the public utility will purchase the energy generated at the retail rate. A second new type of solar community garden project is created in section 8 on page 13. And these gardens consist 100% of residential residents who currently receive LIHEAP assistance. This is a federal program, stands for Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. And another requirement of, or way to be eligible for a LIHEAP community solar garden program is that the garden must be managed and operated by a community action agency or an organization such as an Indian tribe that contracts with the Department of Commerce to disperse LIHEAP funds. Turning to page 14, section 9 also talks about rate recovery for certain investments by utilities, and just specifies that the rate of recovery should be net of revenues on line 14.20. Section 10 on page 15 again provides that expenses incurred by utility are to include employment of local workers to construct and maintain generation facilities. Those costs are recoverable. Section 11 on page 15, moving over to page 16, adds a definition of carbon-free to the definitions under the Renewable Energy Standard, lines 16.8 and 16.9. Section 12 also amends the Renewable Energy Standard by adding some language to the provision allowing for a utility to request from the PUC to modify or delay the standard. The new language on lines 18 and 19 on page 16 specify that one of the things the Commission must consider in evaluating such a request is the environmental costs that would be incurred as a result of that delay or modification. Also on the top of page 17 is new language. Another condition that the Commission is required to examine when it's considering a request for delay or modification is if there are transmission capacity constraints. And the new language at the top of page 17, gives some additional conditions as to what those constraints could be. At the bottom of page 17 is a new definition that's added to the Renewable Energy Standard statute, of a carbon-free standard requiring that by 2050, 100% of the electricity of each utility should, or 100% of the electricity each utility has as of 2050 should be carbon-free. Section 14 at the top of page 18 is also amending provision in the Renewable Energy Standard. It expands the scope of the local benefits that the PUC should take mind of in implementing this law with respect to high-quality jobs, ensuring that all Minnesotans benefit from clean and renewable energies. At the bottom of that page, in section 15, is or actually starting at the top of page 19, requires that each public utility by the 1st of January in 2021 submit an application to the Commission for review and approval of a proposal to install one or more energy storage systems. Turning now to page 20, section 16, Innovative Clean Technologies. I believe this is the first section in here from House File 1956, the governor's bill. This says that a public utility can petition the commission for authorization to invest in a project to deploy one or more innovative clean technologies. And at the top of page 21, it specifies that there's a cap on the amount that can be spent on these clean technologies, up to $5 million each year. Section 17 is also from House File 1956, and you'll see towards the middle of the page on line 19 that one of the changes is that the energy policy of the state to achieve energy savings is increased from the current 1.5% to 2.5%. Section 18 on page 22 begins a long section of this bill, about 25 pages, that are making changes to the state's conservation improvement program. And I think a little background may be helpful here in figuring out what's going on here, because it's a lot of language and it's kind of complex. Right now, the SIP statute is organized by issue. For example, the issue of energy savings goals, the issue of low-income programs. Under each of those subdivisions, there are paragraphs, some of which apply to all types of utilities, some of which apply only to municipal utilities and co-ops, some of which only apply to public utilities. What this language does is reorganize that section. It puts all the language that apply to municipal utilities and cooperative utilities in one section, and all the language that applies to public utilities in another section. So it looks like there's a lot of new language, but a lot of it really isn't new. It's moving existing language from one place to another place in the statute. One thing that is new is you'll see on line 2218, there's a new definition, consumer-owned utility, which means municipal utility or a cooperative electric association. Given the scope of this statute, I'm going to focus only on what is really new language in here, because I think in the issue of brevity, that's probably the best thing to do. And one of the first things we'll notice on page 24 in the definition of low-income programs, it says multifamily buildings of 5 units or more that are rented by low-income persons are eligible to be served through low-income programs. That's not in current statute, and that's going to play out later in this bill, as you'll see. Turning now to section 19 on page 25. This establishes the energy goals, essentially, for consumer-owned utilities. And there really aren't many changes here, except I bring your attention to lines 23 and 24 on page 25 to be included in achieving the utilities' energy savings goals are net energy savings from efficient fuel switching improvements. And there'll be more discussion of that a little bit later in the bill, too. The next really new provision is on the top of page 29. Paragraph G, which says that the energy conservation and optimization plan that each customer-owned utility must file with the commission must have a component focused on improving energy efficiency in schools. And it points out programs to update lighting, update the heating and cooling system, provide for building recommissioning and other things. That is new language. In subdivision 5 below that, we see that low income is defined as 60% of state median income. That is new. And on line 18, it says municipal utility that furnishes gas service must spend at least 0.4% of its most recent 3-year average gross operating revenue from residential customers on low-income programs. That's an increase from the current 0.2%. And the same thing is true of the 0.4% number on line 20 that refers to consumer-owned utilities, also going from 0.2 to 0.4. On page 31, subdivision 8 establishes the criteria for efficient fuel switching improvements in terms of when does fuel switching, when is it considered to be efficient, and when does it count towards a utility's energy savings goal. The next new language is on page 34 in section 21. This is language that's now applying to public utilities rather than customer-owned utilities. You can see on line 18 that the annual savings goal for public utilities has been increased from 1.5% to 1.75%. The next new language is on page 37, at the top of that page. This again speaks to the issue of fuel switching, and it says that the Commissioner of Commerce must develop and publish technical information that utilities will use to be able to evaluate whether fuel switching improvement meets those criteria that we looked at a few moments ago and will count towards the energy savings goal. So that awaits some technical information coming from the Department of Commerce. On page 39, towards the bottom of the page, paragraph G is essentially identical language regarding the public utilities requirement to include in its conservation plan a component focused on improving energy efficiency in schools. On page 40, in section 26, on line 22, we're adding to existing language that a pre-weatherization measure, it talks about the ownership of the energy conservation improvement and adds talking about ownership of pre-weatherization measures, which are defined a little bit later in the bill. Another new piece of language is at the top of page 41, which indicates that public utilities must spend 0.8% of their gross operating revenue on low-income programs, an increase from the current 0.4%. At the bottom of page 41 and continuing through the first half of page 42 is a long definition of multifamily building, which describes, since they're now eligible to be served by low-income persons, gives a better idea of exactly what buildings fit into that category. Looking towards the middle of that page in paragraph F, lines 42, 18 to 21, is also new language, which specifies that up to 15% of the public utilities spending on low-income programs can be spent on pre-weatherization measures. And it also provides a definition as improvements that are necessary to allow energy conservation improvements to be installed in a home. On page 44, in the middle of the page, it's a provision regarding the contract with the Center for Sustainable Building Research at the University of Minnesota, and it specifies that of the $500,000 contract, up to an additional $150,000 may be used to provide technical assistance to local jurisdictions which adopt a voluntary stretch code, which we'll be talking about later in this bill. On page 45, in section 29, subdivision 11 speaks to the conditions in which fuel switching can be approved as contributing to public utilities' energy savings goals. There's also some new language in the middle of page 46 on lines 16 through 18, where it says regarding this, the counting of efficient fuel switching improvements towards the energy savings goals, that a utility is not eligible for a financial incentive under this subdivision unless the utility achieves its minimum energy savings goal. On page 47, in section 30, this is the IRP section of the statutes. There are new definitions at the bottom of the page for clean energy resource and carbon-free resource, and also at the top of page 48 for energy storage system. There's also new language near the top of page 49 in paragraph C of section 31. Currently, as part of an integrated resource plan, utility is required to include a least cost plan for meeting 50 and 75% of the energy needs from conservation and renewable energy. This language adds another scenario of 100% and specifies it should be a combination of clean energy and carbon-free resources. Section 32 in the middle of the page has new language at the end of that subdivision, saying that in evaluating resource options, the commission must include and consider the environmental cost values that have been adopted under this subdivision. At the bottom of the page, section 33 establishes a new policy for the state. It says that the favored method for meeting energy demand in this state is a combination of clean energy resources. At the top of page 50, in section 34, this contains the kind of analysis that is required to be done in an integrated resource plan for a non-renewable energy facility. You can see paragraph B includes that same 50, 70, 75, and 100% analysis. Paragraph C also states that in analyzing costs under this subdivision, the utility must include the environmental costs as adopted by the most recent environmental costs as adopted by the commission. Section 35, beginning in the middle of page 50, adds new language to subdivision 4, preference for now clean energy resources as opposed to renewable energy facilities. It expands the proceedings that these provisions can be applied to include any proceeding in which a utility seeks to construct an electric generating facility or to procure electricity or capacity. And on line 50.25, it specifies that the utility must demonstrate by clear and convincing evidence that a renewable energy facility, alone in combination with other clean energy resources, is not in the public interest. On page 51, new language at the top of the page in paragraph B says in order for the commission to find that a renewable energy facility is not in the public interest, the commission must find, again on the basis of clear and convincing evidence, that using renewable or clean energy resources to meet the need for energy cannot be done affordably or reliably. And the rest of that page goes into more detail in terms of what affordability and reliability mean. Also, at the bottom of the page, the language requires the commission to make a written determination of its findings and conclusions regarding affordability and reliability under this section. And also states the commission must take into account only non-zero values for the environmental costs that are required to be analyzed by utilities. At the top of page 52, in paragraph G, is language that states that if the commission approves a resource plan including the retirement of a non-renewable energy facility owned by a public utility, the public utility will own at least an amount of the accredited capacity of the non-renewable energy facility, and the utility will own at least an amount of the accredited capacity of the non-renewable energy facility, of clean energy resources equal essentially to the percentage of the retiring facility that remains undepreciated, multiplied times the accredited capacity of that retiring facility, and will also own the transmission and other facilities necessary to replace that accredited capacity of the retiring facility under certain conditions which are established in the rest of that paragraph. Section 36 at the bottom of page 52 requires utilities to report as part of their integrated resource plan filing on the associated local job impacts and steps the utility and its suppliers and contractors are taking to maximize the ability of local construction employment. Section 37 also calls on utilities to consider local job impacts when they're when they're going through a bidding process to select resources. Section 38 is new language that establishes that public utilities that file an integrated resource plan must include in that filing an assessment of energy storage systems. At the bottom of page 39, bottom of page 53, in section 39, requires electric utilities to annually report to the commission the cost of their either their own provision of ancillary services or their purchase of those ancillary services from third parties. Section 40 at the bottom of page 54, this is the certificate of need language, and on line 26, it includes energy storage as one of the possible resources that must be looked at under a certificate of need hearing. The same thing is done on page 55 in the middle of the page, adding energy storage systems to that language. Section 41 on page 56 is also language from the certificate of need statute. Again, in the middle of that subdivision on line 12, requires the applicant for a certificate to demonstrate by clear and convincing evidence to the commission that it has conducted that 50, 75, 100% analysis required earlier. At the bottom of page 56 is language from Representative Long's bill on beneficial electrification. Paragraph A states it's a goal of the state to promote energy end uses powered by electricity that reduce net greenhouse gas emissions. Section 43 is also part of that bill. It requires it allows public utility may submit to the commission a plan to promote energy uses powered by electricity within its service area. Section 44 is from Representative Akam's bill, House File 1133, the Solar for Schools program. This language sets up a grant program to be operated by the Department of Commerce to give grants to schools to defray the upfront costs of solar energy systems that would be installed on or adjacent to school buildings. And talks about the application process on page 59. Also specifies at the bottom of page 60 that no more than 50% of the grant payments awarded to schools can go to schools where the proportion of students eligible for free and reduced price lunches is less than 50%. And applications cannot be submitted after December 31st, 2023 at the bottom of, or at the top of page 61. Section 45, also on page 61, has a similar program for Solar for Schools, but this is a program specifically for schools located in the Xcel Energy Retail Electricity Territory. And rather than a grant, this is using, this is sharing, the solar energy systems are to be owned by third parties who will share some of their tax and other financial benefits with the schools, and that will be added to from funds from the renewable energy, or from the renewable development account for the schools. Turning now to page 64, section 46 is from Representative Long's House File 2233. which establishes a program to award rebates to purchasers of electric vehicles. At the very bottom of the page, it says a $2,500 rebate is issued for new vehicles, and at the top of page 65, a $500 rebate for a used electric vehicle. Rebates cannot be issued for vehicles whose manufacturer's suggested retail price exceeds $60,000. Section 47 in the middle of page 65 is also from House File 2233. It's a grant program which is to defray the cost of installing public electric vehicle charging stations in state parks and at park and ride facilities. Page 66, Section 48 is from Representative Long's bill regarding the commercial PACE program. What it does on line 6618 is amend the definition of cost-effective improvements to include new construction. And in Section 49 on page 67, it establishes that qualified commercial real property also includes new construction. And what Section 50 does is add a measurement of the real property's appraised value as a portion of that as a potential cap on the size of a loan. Subdivision 10, or Section 51 at the bottom of page 67 is also part of that CPACE bill that states that cost-effective energy improvements under this bill are deemed to be real property, which I believe means they are taxable. On page 68, Section 52, in the middle of the page, is new language that allows the Public Utilities Commission, when it's issuing a permit for a wind facility greater than 25 megawatts, to require contractors and subcontractors on the project to pay prevailing wage. It also says when the commission is issuing a site permit to modify, or I'm sorry, for a large wind energy repowering project, it can apply that same requirement. Section 53, beginning on page 68 and extending to page 69, essentially establishes that same possibility for counties that are issuing permits for wind energy facilities and repowering projects, again, with respect to prevailing wage. Section 54 on page 69 is Representative Long's House File 2396, which calls on the Construction Codes Advisory Council to establish a voluntary code, a voluntary building code set of standards for performance as an appendix to the state building code. That would be voluntary for jurisdictions that could adopt them. Section 55 is Representative Stevenson's bills, House File 1755, that provides money to the Metropolitan Council to purchase electric buses. At the top of page 70, Section 56 is Representative Wagenius's House File 1191, which calls on the Public Utilities Commission to establish a new incentive for utilities that after they reach their 1.75% electric energy sales savings goal, that they continue to do residential conservation under this new incentive that the commission will develop. Section 57, in the middle of page 70, is Representative Stevenson's House File 2618, a grant to awarded to as a pilot project for electric school bus demonstration. Turning now to Section 58 at the top of page 73, requires the Commission of Commerce to do a report to the legislature which develops benchmarks and strategies designed to significantly accelerate the reduction in greenhouse gases by 2030. Section 59 at the bottom of that page is Representative Carlson's House File 2126, the Prairie Island Renewable Energy Project. Section 60 on page 74 requires utilities to participate in a coordinated engineering study to identify needs of the transmission network in the event that large energy generation resources are retired. Section 61, beginning at the bottom of page 74, is the appropriation section. Most of these refer to provisions I've discussed earlier, except subdivisions 1 and 2, which are new. Subdivision 1 awards $6 million to the University of Minnesota to accelerate a transition to renewable energies. Subdivision 2 awards the same amount to the Minnesota State Colleges and Universities system. Finally, the last section in the bill, section 62 on page 78, is repealers. These are all repealers of subdivisions that are in the current SIP law. Subdivision 1 are the current definitions, which, as you saw, have been changed and added back into their respective provisions, depending on what kind of utilities they refer to. Section 2C is subdivision 2C is a subdivision that expired in 2008. Subdivision 4 specified if there were any federal prohibitions against utilities investing in conservation that the state try to waive those prohibitions. That's language that's no longer necessary. And finally, subdivision 5 was a subdivision that had utilities encourage people to use fluorescent light bulbs and develop a collection system for them, which is also no longer needed. That concludes my walk through the bill, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Eliff. That was extremely helpful. So we'll go to member questions, and then we'll take public testimony. We have a large number of public testifiers signed up. If we don't get through them in this morning's meeting, then we'll recess and reconvene at 4:30 back in this room. Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Eliff. Very well done to explain a lot of these things. I just have one question for now. Back on page 16, line 14, we're talking about kind of a modification or delay when requested. My question might be, as it's read, the commission, when requested to modify or delay implementation of a standard, must consider, and then number 2 is highlighted, the environmental cost, ... If we're talking about the 100% clean carbon-free stuff, who can actually request a delay? This isn't a change to requesting a delay, but would that be a customer or a utility? Just help me understand who would be able to request a delay.
Mr. Eliff.
Mr. Chair and Representative Baker, it's my understanding that the utilities would make that request.
So they just, Mr. Eliff, Mr. Chair, they would just go in front and request it. I guess it's just part of the hearing process, the testimony. They would just raise a note, and they would be able to request that.
Mr. Chair, Representative Baker, that's correct, and this subdivision describes what the commission has to take into account in weighing that request.
And finally, Mr. Chair and Mr. Eliff, if that were to proceed, then they request a delay, and then it goes into effect, and then rates go up. How does a request then, or a delay, or a process work to sort of pull those back? Has that ever happened where, once things get moving forward and you've kind of gone beyond a certain point, what then does a utility or a ratepayer have for a case to say, stop this, we want to request this again? How does that work?
Mr. Eliff.
Mr. Chair, Representative Baker, well, if you look at lines 16 and 17 on page 16, the first thing that the commission is requested to consider is the impact on utility costs, and they do that while they're evaluating the request. You're asking what's the recourse once a request has been acceded to, or maybe not, in terms of rates going up. The statutes really don't talk to that.
All right, thank you.
Other member questions before we go to public testimony? Representative Garofalo.
Mr. Chairman, did you say that the deadline for amendments is 3 p.m. on Wednesday?
Correct.
How about amendments to the amendment?
We don't have a committee rule for amendments, to the amendments.
What do you mean you don't have a committee rule with?
We don't have a deadline so 3 p.m. Wednesday would be the same as when all amendments are due.
Mr. Chairman, if the amendments are due at 3 o'clock, how can you draft amendments to amendments that you don't know exist? You can just give the mic to him, Mr. Chairman, it's all right. It's okay, the staff can speak, it's all right. Just go ahead and talk, it's fine.
Mr. Chair, Representative Garofalo, it's an amendment to a DE, so it'd be an amendment to an amendment to an amendment, which would be out of order.
So, Mr. Chairman, my understanding is we would adopt the DE amendment and then take amendments to that. You're telling me we're not going to do that, we're not going to adopt the DE amendment, we're going to take the DE amendment before us and then have amendments drawn to that?
We're planning to adopt the DE amendment on Thursday, and then we're going to be taking amendments to that. So the language, as I mentioned at the beginning, will be essentially the same as this, except it will be drafted as an amendment rather than as a standalone bill.
Thank you.
Yep. Other member questions? All right, seeing none. Chair Wagenius, anything you'd like to say before we move to public testimony? Okay. So our first public testifier is Leah Harrell.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Leah Harrell, and I am a senior at Hopkins High School in the West Metro. Over the past few years, I have witnessed something incredible. I have witnessed the climate movement change the economic, social, and political discussion. I cannot imagine what it feels like for those who have fought for decades to get to this point, but I am honored to have been able to join the fight and experience this very moment, a moment that will define the course of our state's history. I applaud all of you who support the bold initiatives represented in this bill, such as Sections 5.8, creating emission reduction goals in line with climate science, and lines 18.2 through 18.24, providing a just transition guidance. I am grateful to have the privilege to testify in front of this committee more than once in support of these efforts. Yet, I want to make sure all of you understand something very clearly. Speaking into this microphone is not the only form of testimony you all have the responsibility to listen to. Our sit-ins are testimonies. Our school strikes are testimonies. Our lawsuits are testimonies. And most of all, our numbers are testimonies of the values we call you to action. Your generation has the power today to protect my generation's future. My generation has the power to determine who will continue to make these decisions as we become the largest voting bloc in the country. We intend to fill your seats with those who will show real leadership when it comes to addressing climate change and providing a better future for the next generations. I want to leave you with a crucial reminder. Our future is not a political game. I urge you to base your decisions on your morality, on your foresight, and your dedication to the great state of Minnesota. Supporting this bill means supporting our future. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Isaac Orr is up next. And on deck after Isaac is Brian Novak. Oh, excuse me, Representative Baker, did you have a question for the testifier?
No, but as they come up, that's okay. I just have one question for kind of the group as they come up, as this next one comes up. And I guess to the testifiers, throughout this process, we had, in a large part with Representative Long's bills that were pretty cutting edge, and you can have a seat if you want. I'm just kind of curious, there was a lot of sort of questions asked that had not been asked of the utility operators or some of the folks that had some concerns with the bill. I'm kind of curious as testifiers come up, if the author has actually reached out to you and sort of, whoever the author was, I don't want to just point out Mr. Chairman today, Mr. Long, Representative Long, but just any others that have actually tried to work with you to make the bill better as this has landed now on our final sort of markup of this bill. Just kind of curious if other folks have had a chance to address that with the authors going forward. So if you have those thoughts, I'd appreciate that if you've been contacted. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for having me. The main reasons this omnibus will fail to meet its 2050 carbon-free goals and will cause electricity prices to skyrocket is the legislation's reliance on wind, solar, and battery storage, and its failure to legalize new nuclear power plants in the ambiguous future of large hydro and carbon capture technologies to qualify as carbon-free resources in Minnesota. Absent the inclusion of these technologies, this legislation is attempting to reduce greenhouse gas-induced global warming, which the authors have called an existential crisis, using the least reliable, most expensive, and least effective means possible. Battery storage is often heralded as a magical cure for the intermittency of wind and solar, but just 24 hours of battery storage would cost at least $133 billion based on the Tesla battery in South Australia. We would need far more than 24 hours of storage to meet a 100% goal by 2050. Attaining just 50% of our electricity from wind and solar would cost $80.2 billion through 2050, or $1,200 for each Minnesota household every year through 2050. A price tag of $80.2 billion would mean it would cost at least $135 per metric ton of CO2 averted, which is 2 to 8 times more expensive than the social cost of carbon established by the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. In contrast, achieving 80% of our electricity by 2030 from carbon-free resources using nuclear power would save Minnesota $22 billion compared to using renewables. If lawmakers truly believe climate change is an existential threat, then Minnesota can't wait to legalize new nuclear, large hydro, carbon capture technologies because these technologies are safe, scalable, and always available. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Brian Nowak. And up next is Benjamin Stafford.
Good morning. I'm Brian Novak from Northfield, Minnesota. I'm here to speak about the bill and in support of how it is aligning with the work going on in southern Minnesota for clean energy and equity. At a municipal level, southern Minnesota communities are working on climate action plans. It's going on throughout Minnesota, but in southern Minnesota, the work's going on in Rochester, Faribault, and Northfield, just to mention 3. We are at the thick of our work in Northfield and expect the city to adopt its plan in 2020. HF 1833 aligns and complements this work. I'll give you one example. I'm on the Environmental Quality Commission in the city, and 2 weeks ago, Rotary came to our commission asking the city to work with them on a grant proposal to fund 3 EV charging stations in the city. This may seem like a small change, but when the city council adopts this program next week, and it works in concert with the incentives in HF 1833, the change becomes monumental. 1833 is a legislation of vision, possibility, and choice. Imagine a resilient and robust energy grid that serves all Minnesota communities. That means a vision for the farm communities in southern Minnesota. Imagine a private-public partnership resulting from 1833 that funds a group of farms that solely uses electric equipment, tractors, and combines. You might say this is Buck Rogers, but maybe not. John Deere is currently working on a 100-kilowatt tractor as large as the ones that you see in the fields around us in southern Minnesota. Imagine a rural co-op that has multiple 1.5 megawatt turbines that charge a fleet of batteries that are delivered to member farms on a contract basis during planting and harvesting season. When the batteries aren't in use, member farms, they provide a backup needed in rural areas for a robust distributed energy grid. This is one idea of what equity might look like for family farms in greater Minnesota. We need solutions that have vision and equity, not ones that cling to 19th century technology and economic standards. As Representative Wagenius noted, listen carefully to your children and grandchildren about the future they want. This bill goes a long way to get us there. Thank you.
Next up, we have Benjamin Stafford. And on deck is Vishnu Lalitha Surapanini.
Good morning again to all of the committee here. Good morning, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Benjamin Stafford. I'm the Director of Policy and Public Affairs for Clean Energy Economy Minnesota. It's going to come as a total system shock to this entire committee that I'm testifying in support of this bill. We are an industry-led, nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to growing and strengthening Minnesota's clean energy business ecosystem. More simply put, we are the business voice of clean energy in the state. Our membership is comprised of clean energy companies ranging from startup businesses to Fortune 100 companies that employ thousands of Minnesotans across the state. And we are here to support strengthening our state's clean energy business through policy leadership. We thank the committee leadership, including Representative Wagenius, Representative Long, Minority Lead Swazinski, et cetera, Governor Walz, Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, et cetera, for the discussions we've had up to this point. This committee has covered a lot of ground up to this point, and we want to acknowledge that. It's also worth acknowledging that many parts of this bill have had strong bipartisan support in both authorship and across legislative chambers, including changes to consumer data access, supporting energy storage, improving charging for electric vehicles, improving commercial sector clean energy finance options, and fine-tuning energy efficiency programs. These have all had broad participation. This bill supports a transition to a clean, affordable, and reliable energy system while it unleashes economic opportunities across our state, and Minnesota is not alone. There are currently 18 states that have passed, are considering, or including 100% clean energy transition legislation. We are not alone in this, and that is a massive market opportunity. 3/4 of the Fortune 100 companies have some form of clean energy goal or target. Customers want more control over their energy for a variety of reasons, including controlling their costs and their environmental impacts. Technologies like electric vehicles are increasingly becoming part of our electricity system, as is energy storage. This bill contemplates all of these trends and sets a tone for Minnesota's energy future. In terms of economic impact, and you've heard me say this many times before, Minnesota is home to over 59,000 plus clean energy jobs, and those jobs are growing 2 times faster than all other sectors of our state's economy, according to our 2018 Clean Jobs Midwest report. Over the past year alone, renewable energy generation jobs, like those associated with wind, solar, biomass, et cetera, grew 16.5%, which was the highest rate of growth across the entire 12-state Midwest region. Costs of wind and solar dropped 16%, and 23% respectively, according to a recent analysis by Bloomberg New Energy Finance. And this growth in jobs and downward trends in energy prices are bringing benefits to all corners of our state, as 40% of those clean energy jobs are in greater Minnesota. All of this as Minnesota households enjoy retail electricity bills that are 13% lower than the national average. It should be noted that this omnibus bill also envisions thoughtful transitions for communities linked to legacy energy assets. That's an important part of our state and an important part of the clean energy transition. From Pipestone to Pelican Rapids, from Rochester to Duluth, from Uptown to Ely, our state's economy is benefiting from clean energy policy. In closing, policy leadership creates certainty that opens the marketplace for clean energy solutions. With strong, stable clean energy policies, Minnesota will continue to attract jobs and investment. Without them, we will be at a competitive disadvantage. More plainly, accelerating our transition to a clean, affordable, and secure energy system will provide Minnesota with a competitive advantage, will create jobs, and spur additional economic opportunities and benefits for all Minnesotans. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Vishnu Lalithi Surapanini, followed by Joyce Pepin.
Good morning. My name is Vishnu Lalitha Surapaneni. I'm an internal medicine physician at the university. Back in January, I sat here and talked to you all about the health impacts of climate change. And so it's really exciting for me to be back here, finally talking about the solutions. And I wanted to, there were so many incredible things in this bill, but I wanted to pay special attention to electric transportation and the health benefits of that. Now transportation is the #1 source of greenhouse gases. So by transforming to electric transportation, we will be making a huge dent in greenhouse gas emissions and limiting the health damages of climate change. There's also water pollution benefits that we don't necessarily hear about all the time. When we have vehicular emissions, they settle down on the roads that then get washed into our lakes and rivers. And finally, air pollution impacts are what we will see most immediately, because when we change over to electric transportation, we can see an impact in air quality, and this is a real-time benefit of health that we will see. This is not something that's going to be far off. As we know, in Minnesota, about 30% of the people, MPCA says, already live in areas of higher air pollution. And when it comes to lower-income families, that number jumps up to 50%, and communities of color, the number jumps up to 90%. And I'm more than happy to provide any number of references of the health benefits of cutting back down on air pollution. But I kind of wanted to share a personal story with the committee. I've been thinking about the history of climate action, as other members before me have testified. Way back in like 1912, there was a newspaper article that was talking about how when we burn coal, the carbon dioxide that gets released forms a blanket around the Earth and raises Earth's temperature. And this was about 20 years before my grandma was born. And then in 1950s, when my mom was born, we knew about climate science, and fossil fuel companies were already trying to come up with alternative theories of delegitimizing that science. In 1980s, when I was born, we had the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, IPCC, that was talking about how we all need to take global climate action. And so I really hope that when my kids' generation is born, they can point to the fact that Minnesota transformed to 100% clean energy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Joyce Pepin, and following will be Kent Sulam.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Joyce Pepin, and I represent the Minnesota Rural Electric Association and the many co-ops we serve throughout Minnesota. And I appreciate the opportunity to testify today on House File 1833. We have several concerns with the bill. I'm going to just highlight, I think, 3 of them. First, the increased renewable mandates do not take into consideration the limits in existing technology, nor do they provide safeguards to ensure grid reliability and stability if new technologies do not materialize before we ban baseload generation. In fact, the carbon-free standard does not account for reliability at all. No accounting for new technology like carbon capture and sequester. It does not account for the need for gas peaking plants, which serve as an important role during times of need, such as the recent polar vortex. The bill does not provide any safety valve if sufficient technology is not developed to keep the system reliable at an affordable cost. And as a reminder, I mentioned that this last time I was testifying as well, but MISO testified in the Senate Energy Committee, and I'm disappointed that they have not been here yet. They testified that their own renewable integration assessment showed risks to grid stability as renewable energy approaches 40%. Think about that. Risks, great risks, as the renewable energy approaches 40%. To me, that shows this bill is very premature and more work needs to be done to make sure the needs are met. Second, we have concerns with changes to the SIP program. COUs have been meeting for months, even years in some cases, with NGOs to modernize the SIP program. But this bill is not reflective of any agreements the stakeholder groups made. The SIP provisions in this bill are a significant step backward from the status quo. There is another bill that's moving forward in the Senate that addresses the concerns that we have and that we support. Electric co-op suggestions were not taken into consideration at all in this bill, and as a result, electric co-ops do not support the SIP language in this bill. One of the problems in the SIP provision is the bill retains the spending goal. The stakeholder group agreed to remove the spending goal, as achieving the savings is the point of the SIP program, not spending consumer dollars. Another problem is the bill allows for little flexibility in developing programs over time. Allowing for innovative programs over a longer period of time would allow for more creative offerings. The oversight section also needs a lot of work, as it, in its current provision, calls for more burdensome paperwork and regulations. Finally, we oppose the energy usage data section. This section places utilities in the position of managing the data authorization process with no indemnification. Co-ops already provide access to energy usage data to the account holder, who can then pass that information on to whomever they want. Allowing third parties to gain access to data without customer consent violates trust and risks customer security. How can co-ops or anyone ensure a sophisticated hacker can't unaggregate data when a customer is home or vacationing elsewhere? I'd ask you to consider this. Is this fair to customers? Is this how we want to go? I don't think so. For these reasons and many others, which I'd be happy to talk to you about offline, I'd ask you to oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Kent Sulam, and then on deck is David Schaefer.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I'm Kent Sulam with the Minnesota Municipal Utilities Association. We too have a number of concerns with this bill. We have been very grateful, Representative, that your door has been open to us to have conversations about that. And I'll share some of the other things we've had with various members or groups working on this bill. Picking up where Ms. Peppendrop ended, we have very serious concerns about Section 3 of this bill. And from a municipal perspective, we feel it's unnecessary because we already have the Data Practices Act. We have specific laws and specific procedures on how data is classified and how that data is to be obtained, whether it be by the individual subject to the data or their delegate. To now impose a requirement of aggregating data in a way that most of our folks are saying it doesn't matter, you can still identify the parcels, creating a new process on top of the Data Practices Act, and imposing new security requirements on top of what we already have to do as utilities simply is unnecessary and very problematic and would not result in any benefit to the public. We have concerns with the 100% carbon-free, not because it's a bad aspiration, but because there are certain times that you have things like the backup generators that are used for peak loads that simply, it would not be economically viable to try to switch out all of that. You're going to have them used. Sometimes it's a couple hours a day, sometimes it's for maybe 2 days in a row, and then they're off. And to try to go through and do everything that would make them 100% carbon-free simply is not in the best interest of the use of funds. We are working with the department on identifying some alternatives for that process. We too have problems with the SIP concerns. I will not duplicate the comments made, but simply would encourage that we look at the alternative in the other body. Finally, I will try to end on an up note, and I'm glad that Mr. Schaefer is following me because that's just the one area that we are very happy to report. We have an agreement on. The Solar on School programs is something that I think will be a positive for us to work on in the format that it was finally incorporated, and we do appreciate that the outreach that we had with MNCEA. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Next, we have David Schaefer, and then on deck is Annie Levinson-Falk.
Mr. Chair, my name is David Schaefer with the Minnesota Solar Energy Industries Association. First off, I just want to say thank you to you all for bringing this delete-all amendment and for listening to the concerns of the industry. The next point I'll make is to piggyback off what Kent said and to answer Representative Baker's question. After that first hearing on the Solar on Schools bill, we heard several concerns, and so MNCEA worked with the chair, Representative Acomb, and several other members of this committee, as well as several utility stakeholders, the electrical unions, the Department of Commerce, and the School Boards Association to try to draft a better bill that everyone could get behind. And I think as of yesterday, we were able to button it up and get the language in that you see before you on page 57. To the contents of the rest of this bill, we believe that by mid-2020s, the utility-scale solar will be the cheapest form of energy in Minnesota. What this bill does that's most important is it bridges the gap between today and that time period. If we were to just suddenly have the cheapest form of energy in this state and then try to build that out, we'd be hiring labor from other states. We wouldn't have the expertise here. But this bill helps us grow our labor force by developing the Community Solar Garden program, allowing for greater expansion of size, the contiguous county change, and additions to the residential program. It allows for expansion to the solar rewards program, as well as a nice tweak from direct current to alternating current that aligns statutes with the net metering statute and solar rewards. It provides great funding for solar on schools and solar in parks to make sure that developers have some experience with rooftop arrays as well as ground mount arrays. And it also provides some great energy storage language that we're very excited about. The language that came out of the Senate and that came out of the House, we believe would be a great package for taking our first steps towards storage in this state. So with all of those components in this bill, we wholeheartedly endorse it and are very excited about what's to come over the next few years. Lastly, I'll just end with, not only is this bill a bridge from today to the utility scale market of the future, but it also sets our guideposts for even further down the road when we want to have a carbon-free world, and this is just a great map for that as well. So thank you all for bringing this forward. I'd be happy to answer any questions. But yeah, thank you again.
Thank you. Annie Levinson-Falk, followed by Shahid Gir.
Morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Annie Levinson-Falk. I'm the Executive Director of the Citizens Utility Board, an independent advocate for Minnesota's utility customers. I'll keep my comments brief because I know you have a long list of testifiers following me. I'm speaking today in support of the bill. In particular, I want to speak to a portion of the bill that unleashes the potential of energy data in a way that protects ratepayers. In the coming years, hundreds of millions of dollars will be invested in technologies like smart meters, generating much more data than was imagined when Minnesota's energy statutes were written. This bill will make sure that that data is available to the consumer whose money is being invested. It will ensure that consumers in all parts of the state have access to their own data and allow them to share their data with a third party should they choose to do so. It will allow third parties to access summary energy data, enabling groups like CUB to identify rate designs and programs to help people use utility systems more efficiently, saving money. And it will create standards to ensure that consumers' energy data is protected and never sold. Thank you to Chair Wagenius for including this in your omnibus, to Representative Long for carrying the bill, and to Representatives Hornstein, Garofalo, Mahoney, and Stevenson, who are among the bill's co-sponsors.
Thank you. Oh, we have a question from Representative Bowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that your organization kind of represents consumer best interest. I've always been concerned about mandates, and so I'm curious from your point of view, are there provisions in this bill that will help protect consumers from rate hikes and increases in cost if the mandates that are in the bill don't work as envisioned?
Sure. Mr. Chair and Representative, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably have in mind specifically the 100% clean energy portions of the bill in particular. That was the way that we looked at that drafting, that language as well, is to make sure, we hear from consumers, the first thing we hear is they want to save money and they're concerned about their bills. Probably number two to that is they want their energy to be clean, so we're looking for how can we provide, or how can utilities provide the most clean energy in a way that is affordable and doesn't harm reliability. I think that the language in this bill has the flexibility to do that. The way that I read it, and I'm not the expert on that provision, but the way that I read it, if a utility were to get to a point where adding more clean energy would be cost prohibitive or would harm affordability or would hurt the reliability of the system, there's an off-ramp to that, the same as it existed for our current renewable energy standard. I think it was a concern back in 2007 when we put our current standard into law, and that situation didn't really materialize, which is fantastic. I think there's a good chance that as the technology evolves and grid managers learn how to use it, that we'll be able to continue to raise that ceiling of how much renewables the grid can take. But I'm not an engineer. I don't know that that's true, and I think the bill has the flexibility to manage that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope so, but I do still have concerns yet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Shahid Gir. And then on deck is is Shahid here? Doesn't appear to be. Then we have a representative of the Lignite Energy Council. And following would be Jesse Syme with Prairie Island Indian Community.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Joe Selwood with Cook Girard Associates, testifying on behalf of the Lignite Energy Council. Our members currently provide affordable, reliable, and dispatchable electricity from North Dakota's lignite coal reserves that supply power to over 1 million homes in Minnesota. I believe there's a letter in your packets from Jason Bohr, the president and CEO of the Lignite Energy Council, that outlines our opposition to House File 1833. One highlight I want to note of specific opposition is the 100% carbon-free provision. The Lignite Energy Council, through partnerships with the private companies based in Minnesota, the North Dakota Industrial Commission, and the U.S. Department of Energy, we have already begun working on carbon capture and sequestration projects such as Project Tundra that will greatly reduce carbon emissions without any mandates. However, our work is threatened by mandates that would force unreliable technology into the marketplace, where the costs and risks would be borne by the Minnesota families and businesses. If the committee seeks to reduce CO2, we can help in a way that is seamless to Minnesota customers, painless to the economy, and harmless to the environment. Please vote no on the 100% carbon-free mandate provision in the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jesse Syme, Prairie Island Indian Community. And on deck is Ross Abbey with U.S. Solar.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chair. My name is Jesse Syme, and I'm General Counsel for the Prairie Island Indian Community. I'm also a member of the Muskogee Creek Nation of Oklahoma. President Buck asked me to send her regrets. She could not be here in person today. A tribal elder passed away in the services conflict with this hearing. I would like to testify on Section 59 and 61, Subdivision 8 of the bill, which appropriates $2 million in fiscal year 2020 and $3 million in fiscal year 2021 from the Renewable Development Account to Prairie Island for the construction of renewable energy systems. I would like to thank the chair and the committee for including the $5 million in the bill for Prairie Island. However, the appropriation is not adequate for Prairie Island to achieve its goal of becoming a net zero energy community. And we encourage you to adopt the fully funded proposal in the governor's budget. As you'll recall, our proposal, House File 2126, appropriates $46.2 million to the Prairie Island Indian Community out of the RDA, which would result in Prairie Island becoming one of the only Native American tribes in the country that is net zero. Our plan includes both energy conservation at a cost of $10.2 million and an energy generation component at a cost of $26 million. We believe this bold plan will result in the state and Prairie Island becoming nation leaders in sustainable energy. The community is excited about its energy future that includes sustainable resources to power its homes and businesses for years to come. Lastly, and this is really important, and I'd like to take time to underscore this, the historical context for our proposal, which is unique to any other body, any other organization coming to ask for funds from the RDA. As a result of the state's past energy policies, the Prairie Island Indian Community sits only 600 yards from the Prairie Island Nuclear Power Plant and 44 dry casks of spent nuclear waste. So that's about the distance from the front door of the Capitol to the MnDOT cafeteria. And no other human beings are located that close to a nuclear power plant in this entire country. And in that, the tribe is the first responders and takes a huge amount of responsibility for disasters that could potentially happen at that plant. And while the tribe has shouldered the burden of the state's nuclear waste storage policy, the community has never asked for funds from the RDA, despite over $327 million having been spent out of the account since its inception in 1994. We believe that this project not only moves towards a sustainable and clean energy future, but it also is a recognition of the historical injustices borne by the Prairie Island Indian community. We believe we have an opportunity before us to implement a bold vision
for Prairie Island that results in the state and Prairie Island become nation leaders in sustainable energy, and we would urge you to fund this project in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you, and please convey our condolences to President Buck and the community for your loss.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ross Abbey.
Good morning. My name is Ross Abbey with U.S. Solar. U.S. Solar is a 20-person development shop based here in Minnesota, founded back in 2015 specifically to serve the Minnesota market for these community solar gardens, both building the projects, delivering the energy to the utility, and also subscribing out the projects. I want to thank Chair Wagenius, Representative Long, and the entire committee for working to expand access to community solar gardens in this bill. I'll just speak to that element of the bill, specifically at lines 9.2 to 9.9. This effectively modifies the current contiguous county requirement to allow for more rural CSGs, and it really benefits rural landowners by allowing them to start hosting these 1 megawatt CSG facilities. The benefits are many. It includes, on average, something like a $2 million investment into the local economy, including over 40 jobs per 1 megawatt site. It increases the property tax on the 8 to 10 acres that the solar garden takes up from ag rate up to commercial rate. Of course, that benefits the local tax base. That increase is paid by the developers. Allowing for this expansion also increases and diversifies farm owner income over the 25-year term of these projects. Depending on how close the farmer is to a substation or favorable interconnection point, they can fetch lease rates up to $1,000 or more per acre, times 10 acres, times 25 years. It's over $250,000 to the farm family to be able to host one of these sites. And typically what they'll do is they'll ask the developer to put it on their least productive acres, the back 8 or 10 acres. My company and others have committed to installing all these sites with pollinator-friendly vegetation. That's native grasses and wildflowers that are good for the habitat for bees and butterflies, songbirds, even game birds. It also benefits the soil quality, water quality for these sites. And then finally, we also have to pay, as developers, we pay on average over $380,000 to upgrade the local wires and substations of the utility. That means neighbors benefit by being able to plug into new 3-phase power that's running down the street, running down the county road. That's a higher quality power and allows them to invest in additional on-farm activities. I also did bring a letter from 14 rural landowners. If I could circulate this, it just expresses their support for the bill. Last but not least, I also want to mention that this language at line 9.2 to 9.9 also benefits subscribers. For the first time, this puts a 10% requirement on eligible projects that they have to serve at least 10% of their capacity to residential subscribers. And it also makes it more possible to serve those subscribers by getting rid of the arbitrary restrictions. And finally, it benefits subscribers because in addition to access, now they have more portability because they can move across the metro. If you're a resident, if you're a low-income renter, it's even more important because you can move anywhere in the territory and take the solar benefits with you. So with that, I conclude my remarks. Thank you.
We have a question from Representative Swasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question. How many acres do you think this bill would cover? So you talked a little bit about each project potentially, 8 to 10 acres. If you were to combine all the, the work that this bill, what do you estimate that would take?
Mr. Abbey?
Chair, committee member, representative. It's hard for me to speculate, especially there's many different components of the bill. What I could say is to date there have been about 500 megawatts installed, mostly around the Twin Cities metro area. 10 acres each, call it 5,000 acres of solar so far, and this maybe could double that.
Representative Swasinski.
And then just a follow-up, just to kind of from your business, sounds like you started in 2015, kind of around the community solar projects. How many projects has your business done?
Mr. Abbey?
We've probably got 70 or 80 in the pipeline, and at least, I think, 15 are already built and delivering energy to the grid.
And just a follow-up, kind of, some of the other members talked a little bit, they kind of, folks that are doing your projects, they build some and then they keep some, but they also sell some after they're completed. Kind of what's your makeup? The 70, 80 are in the pipeline. Do you have buyers for those already? Or kind of where, from a secondary market, where you guys kind of fit in that mix?
Mr. Abbey?
Chair, Representative, for our initial portfolio, for the first program year, we're able to kind of get applications, and it's a 2-year process to build them. We had partnered a joint venture with a Canadian utility to make that happen. They took the assets under that deal. Going forward, we think we're in a good position to develop and then maintain our own ownership. That allows us to maintain operations, provide better service to, obviously, our landholder hosts, neighbors, and subscribers.
Thank you. So a Canadian company for your initial 15 or so?
Yes, I think it was the Power Company of Canada.
Oh, would it be Manitoba Power?
Representative Suzinski? Mr. Abbey?
Chair, Representative, no, it was not Manitoba Power, to the best of my knowledge. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Baker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to testify, the other night, we learned a lot about kind of community garden solars and how they work and how they developed, and I learned a lot that night. Some of the things in this bill here today are about this, a little more transparency and third-party vendors, third parties getting information on rates and how ratepayers are using their energy, and it's kind of it's heartburn for some people on this committee to kind of open that up. There's some data privacy stuff there and so on. In your world with community solar gardens, I asked some questions the other night about how those subscription agreements work. And would you be open to allowing that information when names are taken off the subscription agreements that you sign up, people? Would you be all right with allowing that to be, kind of public for the PUC to examine, to kind of see how that works when we're establishing the value of solar and other things, so that we can kind of see how these deals are put together, how the profits are shared, how that stuff works? What in your opinion, do you think that's the right approach as well?
Mr. Abbey?
Chair, Representative, certainly the commission can ask those materials, I think, at their own discretion. In terms of our subscription agreements, we just use a standard form for all of our residential subscribers. It's basically already public information. Anyone who wants to look at it for purposes of evaluation, potentially participating, obviously, we're happy to share that.
Okay, thank you. That's it for now.
Thank you. We have 3 more testifiers. We have 2 minutes left till time, but I'm hoping members will allow us to go just a few minutes over. There's nobody following us, so hopefully we can try to get through these folks. Lauren Lugtug up next, and then on deck is Brendan Jordan.
Move where I can see the chair. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I'm Lauren Lontag with Otter Tail Power in Fergus Falls. And just as a reminder, we serve half our customers in Minnesota, half in the Dakotas, and we serve a lot of little towns between 100 and 500 residents. First of all, I want to thank a few people for some accommodations, for trying to make accommodations. Section 15, the energy storage section, we are looking forward to doing some pilot projects with energy storage. The Energy Storage Association worked with us a good part of last session. Some additions to the bill in this body were probably not helpful. Section 17, 18, 21, and 29, the energy savings and optimization sections. The Center for Energy and Efficiency has worked with us, and we got that piece of the bill to a point where we think we could work with it. Sections 30 through 38, the changes to the IRP statute, Representative Stevenson and the Center for Energy and Efficiency, we worked hard on that part of the bill for a long time. Subdivision 4, unfortunately, in Section 34, dealing with ownership requiring 80% by 2030, that's probably not doable in any way by my company, especially for a fraction of ownership to reach 80% by 2030. The carrots and the sticks are a little out of whack in that part of the bill, I'll say. Sections 42 and 43, Representative Long's beneficial electrification. By the way, the sections, Representative Baker, the sections I'm mentioning, we have spent time negotiating with parties over a period of time. Representative Long's beneficial electrification had some good ideas. I testified in favor of it here. These were not negotiated, so either Representative Long got lucky as a freshman legislator, or he was well advised by someone. Section 44, solar for schools. David Schaefer from the Minnesota Solar Energy Association. We've worked for quite a while on that together, as Mr. Sulam said, and we already have a solar on schools program, and we think that part of the bill could be useful in applying for grants to achieve that. And we'd like to especially do that in schools where we have economic difficulties. Section 60, the Coordinated Transmission Study, the Center for Energy and Efficiency, and the Clean Grid Alliance worked with us to negotiate that. The other sections of the bill are, from my assessment of the bill, are not negotiated and not agreed to. And in particular, the 100% carbon-free standard that the governor proposed. I mean, we weren't totally surprised by this, but I don't know if it's the bridge too far or if it's the leap of faith. First of all, let me say there are no zero-cost futures for any utility, no zero-cost increased futures. Even our coal plants over time have to be refurbished. So everything that we do costs money in some way. The choices we have are wind, gas, and solar, and unless you have access to large hydro, as some do, or energy storage. And so the idea of taking gas out of that equation entirely by 2050 is not likely, in my opinion. The polar vortex of January 29 to 31, we gave testimony in this committee, was in the minus 30s in much of our service territory, and we had zero performance from our wind facilities for 48 hours. So in the absence of black boxes or those sorts of things, my advice would be to proceed very cautiously with things like the 100% carbon-free standard. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and that concludes my testimony.
Thank you so much. Next up is Brendan Jordan with Great Plains, and our final testifier this morning will be Nick Mark with Center Point.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, my name is Brendan Jordan. I represent Drive Electric Minnesota. First, I wanted to quickly address Representative Baker's question about consultation. The Drive Electric Minnesota community was certainly consulted on this, and our membership includes the Auto Industry, Auto Dealers Association, a number of private charging entities, a variety of clean air and clean energy organizations, as well as investor-owned municipal and rural electric co-ops all over the state of Minnesota. Drive Electric Minnesota is strongly supportive of, and let me be clear that I'm talking about sections 46 and 47 before I get myself in trouble for implying I was talking about the entire bill. But the electric vehicle provisions in section 46 and 47 do enjoy strong support from the electric vehicle industry in the state. We feel that it's a sensible approach to helping to grow this emerging industry and get us to the point where we do achieve cost effectiveness. Battery prices are dropping rapidly. We already have some emerging opportunities in the state, like electric vehicle bus manufacturing in St. Cloud, EV automation facility in Brooklyn Park, in addition to a whole variety of other great things happening. Mr. Chair and members, I would like to highlight sort of a couple of issues with the provisions, particularly in section 46. When it comes to funding, a couple things to highlight. The original numbers in House File 2233 were intended to achieve a doubling of EV sales, and then the funding was a mix of renewable development account and general fund match. And a couple things one of the things to note there is obviously there are a lot of competing priorities, but if there's a way to get closer to the original amounts, that would be helpful in kind of keeping with the original intent. And also, just to highlight that we believe there's opportunity for statewide growth in EV sales. And so just making sure that because of the restrictions on RDA funding, that rebates could go to Xcel Energy and non-Xcel Energy customers, which was originally proposed to be achieved through a general fund match. I know this bill does not address general fund, but that's something for the committee to consider going forward. We would be happy to contribute providing additional data on which percentage of EV sales are likely to be eligible or ineligible to try to refine what really the right number ought to be. That concludes my testimony, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Our final testifier this morning is Nick Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Nick Mark. I manage conservation and renewable energy policy for CenterPoint Energy. This is a big bill, and I'm not going to speak to everything in it. As you might imagine, there are things that we are supportive of in the bill, as well as some other items that we have concerns about. We have been very involved in the stakeholder conversations over the last year regarding the changes to the SIP statute. I think the final language that's before us today doesn't look exactly like what our group settled on, but it's awful close, and we are generally supportive of the changes. In particular, I think the language around pre-weatherization measures is really helpful and could allow us to really reach a lot of folks that currently are not able to receive weatherization benefits due to vermiculite or asbestos issues in their homes, and we kind of have to walk away from those. With regard to the efficient fuel switching language, I can live with the language that's in the bill. I would have preferred to see a requirement that a utility pursuing efficient fuel switching needed to be decoupled. But as I say, I can live with what's there. And I also want to highlight the language in section 16 around innovative clean technologies. I'm really excited about that. That could create an opportunity for us to develop some exciting technologies such as power to gas that are currently kind of in their infancy and could represent a terrific way to utilize both the gas and electric grids sort of in a complementary and mutually reinforcing way. Our concerns with the bill, you've heard from us before about the data privacy language. I don't want to take up too much time reiterating those concerns. And then I have a little bit of concern around the creation of the state policy goal directly in the IRP statute. I'm looking at section 33, where we say it's the state's policy to pursue clean energy sources. As I read the definitions that are set up in that section of statute, that would exclude renewable natural gas from qualifying as a clean energy resource unless it's burned for electric generation. We're really excited about renewable natural gas. I've spoken with a number of you, and I've tried to telegraph that it wasn't going to be the last time you'll hear from me about RNG. I don't think this is either. But we think it's really important to recognize the benefits of RNG, and because it is, although it is more expensive currently than conventional natural gas, it is frequently a lower cost way to reduce emissions than electrification. So we think it needs to be included in the state's suite of clean energy resources. And that's all I had for the committee.
Thank you so much. Thank you all members for your flexibility with us going a little over time. The committee will recess and reconvene at 4:30 back in this room, and we'll be starting at 4:30 with Commissioner Steve Kelly. Committee is now in recess.